Hi, and welcome to Sew Your Bag. This is part 2, sewing the exterior of the Melesi divided tote bag. The Melesi was first featured in the November 2021 subscription box. In this video, we will cover how to sew the exterior along with how to sew the reversible straps. If this is your first time joining me, please take a look at part 1 of sewing the Melesi. And also, if you're interested in sewing this pattern, you will find the link to the pattern in the show notes below. Thanks again for joining me, and don't forget to click on that subscribe and notify button so that you know when new videos are released. Now let's get started. Okay, so this part is going to be done a little bit out of sequence with the pattern. And that's because we're at the ironing board and I want to be able to do all the ironing at one time. So what we're going to do is we're going to iron our straps, and then we're going to iron as well our tab ends for our zipper. So they're done the same way, and I'll just cover those with you now, and then we'll go back later on and we'll install them. So let's start with our tab ends for our zipper. So we're going to iron them flat. These are not interfaced at all. So there's no type of interfacing. You should be laying these right side down or wrong side up on your ironing board. We're going to measure a center mark, or we're going to draw a center line down the middle. And actually, we don't need to do that. What we're going to do is we're going to make sure that it's longer than it is shorter. We're going to fold it in half until the short ends meet. Just like this. And we're going to iron that. So that's folding it in half. And then we're going to use that half mark to find our center mark. So we're going to fold the short ends in towards that creased line that's in the middle. So we're going to fold one side of the short end till it meets that middle crease. And we're going to iron. And then we're going to sew the other side in, the other short end into the middle, so that both short ends meet in the middle. And we're going to iron that as well. And then once we've ironed those, what we will do is we'll fold it in half one more time. Just like so. And we'll iron that. We're going to repeat the same steps for the other tab. And when we're done with this, what we should see is that this tab will measure 3/4 of an inch wide. So it should be 3/4 of an inch wide when you're done. So we're going to do the same thing for this center tab to repeat. It's wrong side up or right side down. We're going to match the short ends, and we're going to sew a crease to mark the center line. Once we have that crease, we're then going to open it back up. We're going to take the short end again of one of the edges, and we're going to fold it in towards the middle. And we're going to iron it. We're going to do that again for the other short end. Fold it to the middle and iron. And then we're going to fold it in half. Just like so. And we're going to iron it. So those will be for our zipper the zipper ends for our zippers. So they're the zipper tabs. Because remember, we're using a zipper that's a zipper by the yard. So we're going to take these two. I'm just going to clip them together and I'm going to set them to the side. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to get our strap. And remember, I made this just slightly smaller slightly smaller widthwise than the back of the strap, and that's just so that when we're stitching, I don't have to worry as much about lining up the ends. So right side down, we're going to do the same technique. We're going to do the same technique. We're going to fold this in half lengthwise. But I'm not going to iron this too heavily. I'm just going to finger press it to find that center line. And that's because I don't want, I'm lightly ironing it. I don't want a permanent crease in there, which is difficult to get out. So I'm just going to do that the full length. And you can finger press it, you can lightly iron it, but don't make a permanent crease. So finger pressing is just this. You just press down as hard as you can to get it in half, because we want to know where the center line is, so that then that way we can create our strap. Okay, so I ironed one side and I finger pressed. So once I know where the center line is, I can now take this long end, and it's either this one or this one, it doesn't matter, and I can fold it into the middle. Now we can actually iron it well to get it to stay down. So I'm going to do that the full length of your strap. And it is a little hot. All right. Once you have one side ironed, you're going to then flip it, unless you can do it from the other way. And we're going to fold this other long end into the middle. So we want to fold them both into the middle. Now we're not going to be folding this in half again. We're going to leave this just like this. But we will be folding it into the middle. And I'm just meeting that other fold raw edge from the long side. So I'm just folding it in and meeting that other raw edge. Remember that I did not line this. If you want to, you may line it, but I did not line mine. And that's because I'm going to be using waterproof canvas. I would say if you're going to use all cotton for your strap, you should line it. Preferably, you should also use something that's a non-woven interface to give it some rigidity and make sure it does not stretch. So that's my first strap. I'm just going to iron it a little bit from the front to try to get rid of any crease that I may have created on it, and give it a little bit of steam. And it doesn't really matter because we're going to be stitching over that anyway, so it won't matter as much. But just try to make it not permanent or pronounced. And so that's one strap. We're going to do the same thing to the other strap. Remember, so when you're done, you should have two of your straps and your two zipper tabs already pressed and ready to go. So what we're going to do now is we're going to prepare our zipper. So this zipper actually has no ends to it. So if you have a store-bought zipper, you should cut off any of the ends that you have on that zipper. This is a number 5 handbag zipper that I'm using. You can use a number 3, but it's a number 5. I find is a nice looking zipper inside the bag, especially for this divider pocket, as well as the fact that the number 5 zipper has a very large pull. So the zipper pull is very large. So you're going to cut it to the dimensions on the pattern. If you had the kit, it actually came in the little bag with the screwdriver. So what we're going to do is we're going to retrieve the zipper tabs that we ironed, and we're going to add one zipper tab to each end. So the way that we're going to do that is we're going to unfold the zipper tab. We're going to take one end of our zipper and we're going to place it against that fold in the middle, and we're going to fold the zipper tab over. And then you're going to take a clip and you're going to clip it. What I like to do when I'm doing this is I like to also make sure that the back part of the zipper tab is about 1/8 inch longer than the front. So if you look at the zipper tab, what you will notice is on the back side over here, it is about 1/8 of an inch longer on the back side right here than the front. And that way, when I stitched it at a 1/8 inch seam allowance, I'm sure to catch the back and I won't miss it. If you align them together, there's a chance that when you're sewing it, you could miss the back. But by leaving that 1/8 inch extension in the back, it ensures that you catch it. The other thing I do is I do cut my zipper tabs a little bit longer, just so that I can see that, and then I will come back and I will trim it down. So we're going to do that for one side, and then we'll also clip another one to the opposite side. This will give your zipper a finished edge. So when we're done stitching this down, you will have a finished edge to your zipper. So now you can see you have no raw edges on your zipper. We're going to take this to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch 1/8 of an inch to stitch this down, and we're going to stitch 1/8 of an inch on the other side to stitch it down. Okay, so now that once you stitch them, you will see that you have your two zipper tabs, ends are sewn in. I'm going to clip off the extra fabric on either side just to make it flush with the zipper. So it's flush with the zipper over here, and I'm just going to cut that off. And it should be a little bit, it's about 1/8 of an inch over. So a scant amount, and that's just so when I put it into the bag, it'll stay. I don't have any extra things, any bits or bobs. So that's your zipper ends. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take the zipper ends and the zipper with the zipper ends attached, and we're going to put that to the side, and we're going to move on to our strap. So we've prepared this. So the next thing you're going to need to get is you're going to need to pull out your two straps that you folded, which is this strap, the two exterior pieces. And you're going to pull out your two pieces of waterproof canvas. So we've already ironed these two pieces. What we need to do is we need to prepare the pieces of waterproof canvas so that we can attach this piece onto this piece. So we'll start with one piece first. Now your waterproof canvas has two sides. It has like a smooth, like waxy side. This is actually like I think it's a polyurethane or plasticky kind of finish. And on the other side, there is a weave. So there's a weave finish on the other side. This is the right side of your waterproof canvas. We're going to turn it over to the wrong side. Notice we have not interfaced this either. So the same way we did not interface the other piece, our cotton pieces, we're not going to interface this. We're going to draw a center line. So a center line for us on this is a 1-inch line down the center, because we need to know where we're going to fold it to. So we're going to put our ruler down, and I'm going to use a permanent marking tool because so we're going to draw a line that's 1 inch over from either edge. So I'm going to draw it 1 inch over from my left edge, and I'm going to draw it down the middle. And I'm using a permanent marking tool so you can see what it is. So I'm actually using a pen. Also, it's on the wrong side, so you won't see it on the right side. And if you decide to use a permanent marking tool like a pen, make sure that it doesn't bleed through to the other side. So I wouldn't recommend using a Sharpie or anything like that. So I'm going to draw a line going straight down the middle, 1 inch over from the left edge. You could do it from the right edge. So now you'll see that I have that line going down the middle. I'm going to use that line in the middle to fold over my long raw edges too. So I'm going to fold them in this way. If you received a box, or you're using, this is out of the subscription box, there is a roll of tape. There's actually 2 rolls of tape in your subscription box. And we're going to be using the roll of tape. So there's 2 rolls of tape. We will be using the roll of tape that is 1/8 inch wide. So that's the roll of tape that we're going to be using. Like I mentioned, this is a low tack tape. It is a scrapbook tape. It's low tack. It will not gum. It should not gum up your needle. So we're going to take, and we're going to put a piece of tape. We're going to add a piece of tape down either long end or both long ends of our strap on our waterproof canvas. Remember, this is the wrong side that we're doing this on. And this should be easily tearable as well, so you should be able to tear it one side and the other side. So we're going to do that. Yes, you can use the 1/4 inch tape. I just, I like the 1/8 inch, because that way I'm guaranteed to also keep it away from my needle. So now what we've done is we've added it to both edges. The next thing we're going to do is, starting at one long edge, and just press it down firmly. That's all I'm doing, is I'm running it through my fingers and pressing it down firmly. We're going to peel back the backing off of one piece of it. So if you look at this, it's actually kind of shiny right there. And so we're going to peel this backing down. Now you can do it gradually, or you can do it all at once. I would recommend, if this is your first time, just do it gradually. And what we will do is, as we peel it back, we will take that long edge and we will match it to that center line. And we're going to push down really firmly with our fingertips to make sure that that tape sticks down. So it will stay. You just push it down right on the tape. And it should be matching that center line. Like I said, I mentioned that you should probably do it, if this is your first time, don't pull it all off. Pull it off gradually, push down. It's very easy to get frustrated if it sticks too much in areas that you're not ready to stick down. So I'm just going to push this down. And then when I get to the end, I'm just going to push it down. So you should have, but when you're done, one edge pushed, folded over to that center line, and it should be sticking down with your tape. I just run a fingernail or my fingertip along that just to make sure it sticks down. So it sticks down, there's no clips, it's sticking. We're going to repeat that step for the opposite end, and we're going to fold it in to meet that line. They should be right next to each other, so we're not leaving any gaps for this particular strap. Once again, when you peel it back, you should see that it's shiny. And it's kind of hard to see, but you see it's a little bit shiny. And take your time in doing this and repeat those steps, but we're going to match this long edge to the center. And remember to push down so that you're catching, you're actually settling it in there. So now we have that strap. When you're done, your strap should measure approximately 1 inch wide. We're going to repeat those steps for our second strap. Make sure that you're drawing a line on the wrong side of your fabric, not the right side of your fabric. Remember, I said to you that the wrong side has a weave, does not have that weave. So when you're done, you will have 2 straps, which will be your bottom, and 2 straps using your exterior fabric, which will be your top. The next step is to put these all together. So what you're going to need is you're going to need 1 exterior and 1 waterproof canvas piece. You're going to take the waterproof canvas strap and you're going to flip it over so that that side that's showing the seam is face up. You're then going to take another piece of double-sided tape, and in this case I'm going to use the tape that's 1/4 of an inch wide, and that's because I'm going to lay this tape directly down the middle of this strap, so I want to make sure that it's in the middle. If you use the 1/8 inch, you will find that it may be difficult to get it to cover the seam, and I want it to cover the seam, so that's why I'm doing it this way. So I'm going to lay it right down the middle. I'm going to put it right over that seam, and the reason that I'm doing this is so that I can lay my exterior fabric piece on top, and it will hold it together, so I don't need any clips. So you can see I'm just pulling to one side and it easily tears. I will then peel back the backing like I did before, exposing that shiny part of the tape. Once again, you can do this slowly. You can peel it all at once. I'm going to line up the raw short edges, and the reason I'm doing that is because these are going to go into the bag so you won't see them. And I'm going to line that up, and I'm actually going to center this piece of fabric, exterior fabric, on top. What you should notice is that there's probably going to be a very small edge of your waterproof canvas peeking through on both sides, and that was done purposely. So this piece is slightly shorter. And that way I don't have to worry about them totally lining up on the end if my folds are a little bit off. So I actually cut it a little bit shorter. And that's in the pattern. So I'm going to lay that on top, and I'm going to press down. Once I have it where I want it, I'm going to press down. And that double-sided tape is holding it. You can see it's holding it. I don't have to do anything. This is really helpful when you go to the sewing machine, so you're not fiddling with pins or clips. If you look at it, you can see this side is the exterior, and this side will be the waterproof canvas side. I'm going to repeat the same steps for the other strap. So now you will have 2 straps, 2 reversible straps. What you will do is you will do 2 rows of stitching. So the first row of stitching, you're going to do 1/8 of an inch from the edge. So you're going to do 1/8 of an inch. You're going to stitch down, all the way down. When you get to the bottom of your strap, so when you get all the way down here, you're going to leave your needle in the down position. You're going to pivot your strap this way. You're going to stitch across till you're about 1/8 from the edge. With the needle in the down position, you're going to lift your presser foot. You're going to pivot your strap again. So now that you're coming down the other edge at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And you're going to go all the way down to the bottom of your strap. When you get down here, we're going to do a second row of stitching that's 1/4 of an inch in, and we're going to repeat. So the needle should be in the down position, lifting your presser foot. You're going to pivot it so it's this way. You're going to sew across the bottom till about 1/4 of an inch from the edge. Leave your needle down, lift your presser foot, pivot again, lower your presser foot, and do a 1/4 of an inch. So you'll have 2 rows of stitching here. So I'll do the first row of stitching, and then I'll come back and I'll show you what it looks like, and then I'll go and do the second row of stitching. I just want to mention that since this is a top stitch, your stitch length should be between a 4 and a 4.5 on your sewing machine. And so you want to do that with a longer stitch. So it's a top stitch, you should be doing it with a longer stitch. So now I've stitched it with the first top stitch, which is 1/8 of an inch in. Once again, it's between a 4 and a 4.5, which is my stitch length. To stitch in 1/8 of an inch, because this exterior is slightly shorter widthwise than the back, I use the edge of the exterior fabric and not the edge of the waterproof canvas. So I should have mentioned that to you. If I turn this over, you can see the stitch line. I used a contrasting thread so that you could see it. So now what we're going to do, that we have these 2 stitches, these 2 rows of stitches at 1/8 of an inch from either edge, we're going to put another row of stitching in at 1/4 of an inch. Okay, so now we finished our top stitching, and you can see we have 2 rows of top stitching on here. For the top part, I didn't worry about it too much. It doesn't have to be neat. When we stick it in the bag, that will be hidden. So this will be our top stitching that we see. And it's 2 rows. If you're only comfortable doing 1 row, then do 1 row of top stitching, and you can pick whether you want it 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch, and then just do 1 row on each side. So now we can set that aside as well. So we have our straps and we have our zipper ready to go. So now we're going to attach the foam to our pieces. So we really only have 3 pieces of foam that we need to attach, and all of the foam is going to be attached to the external pieces. So we're going to attach a piece of foam to the bottom. And you notice I made some measurements here. But we're going to attach a piece of foam to the bottom, which has our woven interface and our Decovil heavy. So we have a piece of foam for that. We have a piece of foam for our front and back. So here goes a piece of foam for this and a piece of foam for the front and back. I'm going to start with the front piece first. And then I'll show you how to attach a label. And then I will attach it to my bottom of my bag, and I'll show you how to attach the purse feet that came in the kit. So for anybody who bought the kit for the November box, I will show you how to attach those as well. So when we're attaching the foam, this is a sew-in foam. I like this so much better. I find that when you use the fusible one, you have to be very careful not to get puckers in it, because those puckers are hard to get out, and you usually have to iron it on. So there is a one-sided fusible foam that you can use and that you can find at your local craft store. I use the Anti-Soft and Stable because I love it a lot better, and I like the fact that I don't get puckers because it's not adhered to my project. So when we're sewing in this foam, we're going to set our stitch length to the longest stitch length, or a basting stitch. On my machine, it's a 6. So I'm going to set it to a 6, and I'm going to sew all the way around my piece using the 6 stitch length of 6 and 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So I'm putting it outside my seam so I don't see it later on and I don't have to rip it out. So it's 1/8 of an inch seam allowance using the longest stitch length you have on your machine, and you're going to do it going all the way around. All right, so now that you've sewn on that stabilizer, and I've actually sewn it on using a stitch length of 6 or the largest stitch length on your sewing machine, and stitching it on with a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance all the way around, your foam should be attached. So the next thing we want to do is add our label that we received in our kit. If you did not purchase the kit or purchase the box, you can install any label. It's the same way. If you have your own personal tags, you can do that, or you can just leave it blank. Leave it plain. So what we have to do first is we need to find the center of our front. So you pick whichever one you like to be the front. Make sure it's right side facing up, and we're going to make markings. So the first thing that I do is I fold this in half. So I fold it in half, right sides together, and then either using your pen, or I actually just cut a little snip here, 1/8 of an inch snip. I find the center on the top. So I just snip it. Make sure you snip it with inside your seam allowance so that you don't have any problems later on. I don't know if you can see that little V. And then I'm going to do the same at the bottom. So I'm going to fold it again. And I'm going to do a little snip. If you're marking the back of your piece, make sure that you're marking it where the center is. So if you would to take a pen, you would mark it like this for the center mark. So you can find the center mark later. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up my center top and my center bottom on my cutting mat. So center top, center bottom on my cutting mat. I can then do the same thing. If I want to find the center left to right, I would do the same thing, and I would fold it in half. Once again. And make a little snip, or make a mark with a pen, or water soluble pen, or air erasable pen, whatever you want to do. It could be permanent as long as it's on the wrong side. And I would do the same thing on the sides. All right. So this is really up to you how you want to do this. I tend to, because I know the seam is going to be the same at the top and the bottom, I'm going to put mine right in the middle, and I know where the center is based on my center marks. If you need to, you can actually take your ruler, you can lay it down on your center marks, like so, and you can draw a little line, horizontal line like that, and you can draw another line vertically, this way, as well, which is another way to mark your center, and then draw another line. So then that right there would be my center. I'm going to take the plate, and usually these come with plates of some sort. Labels or tags come with some plate of some sort, unless it's a wooden one. And I'm going to lay that on top so that it's centered. So I can see this way it's centered and that way it's centered. I'm then going to take my marking tool, and this is on the wrong side, and I'm going to mark a line where the little slits are on my plate. So then that will give me the center. If you want to, you can measure it to see it's the same over here and here, but that's the center. So these marking lines will be the same as the prongs which appear here, and they will match up with those marking lines. I'm then going to take either a seam ripper, and be very careful with the seam ripper, or I will take a pair of scissors and I will snip a hole where these are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold mine on the center line right here, just like that, right? Because you can see that horizontal center line. Make sure that on the right side that you're pushing the fabric down so you're getting it. And I'm going to, ever so slightly, it's easier to make a small hole than a big hole. So I'm just going to take a little tiny snip there, and I'm going to take a little tiny snip there. Once again, you can use your seam ripper. Be very careful, especially if it's sharp. And I've made 2 snips. So I can show you from the back, if I take this and I stick it through, it should go through to the front. So my snips didn't go through to my fabric. Over here, I don't have the snip. So I'm just going to fold it one more time and make sure I get that fabric stuck up in there. So I snipped the foam, but I didn't snip the fabric. Like I said, you can always come back and redo it. You can't undo it. So I snip. And just to make sure I got this, I'm just sticking my finger right there where that crease is. Right here. And I'm going to snip. So I got the foam, but I didn't get the fabric in the front. Okay. So now if I stick this here, just to test, it should go all the way through. And it's okay. You can bend that prong in. It should go all the way through to the front of my fabric. I still didn't get the fabric. So let's see where the, okay, yep, I got it. Thought I didn't get it, but I did. All right, so you can see there the prongs are coming through. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn it over and I'm going to install it from the front because I know that they go through. And I'm going to put them through the holes in the front and I'm going to push to the back. So now you can see my prongs coming through in the back. I'm then going to take my plate and I'm going to slide it over because I know that that's perfect placement because I use those as my guides. And I'm going to bend my prongs inward. So I'm going to bend one to the left and I'm going to bend one to the right. This is a personal preference. I know a lot of people say that. Based on my experience, I have found that if you bend the prongs out, if for any reason you pull on this because the prongs are this way, it's very easy for it to slide out. If you bend them in, it's a lot more difficult for your tag to come dislodged. If you notice that your tag is not straight at all, you can simply just rotate it up or down to get it to be straight. And that's the way you install your tag. What I'm going to do is on the reverse side over here, is I'm going to add a piece of duct tape over the top. You can add duct tape, washi tape, masking tape. I use a very strong duct tape, a Gorilla Tape, over the top to hold it down. And that's so that none of this rubs against the back of the lining and potentially wears a hole. So I will add a piece of duct tape to the back of this. So I'm going to add this piece of duct tape right over the top of that. I'm going to push down. Like I said, this is a pretty strong piece of duct tape and it will stay and it's to stop. So now what we've done is we've inserted our label to the front. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to add our purse feet. So you should pull out your bottom that you received in the kit. And this should be prepared not just with the foam, but you should have your Decovil Heavy in here as well as your woven interface. So we took our exterior fabric, we applied the woven interface first, then we applied the Decovil Heavy, and then we stitched down the foam to the back. You're going to retrieve your purse feet. In this case, I'm using the screw-in ones that were part of the box. You can use these, or there are other ones that are push type of purse feet. You can use those. So these will be a little bit more, they could be a little bit more challenging, but we're going to walk through them and I'll show you what you need to do. So the first thing we need to do, and they come in two pieces. So we have the actual purse foot and then we have the screw-in piece. You should have gotten a screwdriver in your kit as well, and it came in the little pouch here. You should have gotten a screwdriver. So what we're going to do is we're going to mark the center left and right and top to bottom like we did before. So I'm going to fold this in half, and you can either fold it this way or this way. Remember to put all markings on the back of your piece. So I'll do this one a little bit different. I'll mark it on the back with a pen. Hopefully the pen will cooperate. And I'll mark it on the bottom as well. Make sure you keep readjusting the top and the bottom, you know, the sides, just to make sure that you're getting, because you can see like this can end up being like this or like this, but make sure you line them up. So I have a lining here and a lining here. I'm going to do the same with this side. And this may be a little bit more challenging because remember we have that Decovil Heavy in there, so you're going to have to fold that. Don't fold it too hard, but fold it enough that you can make your markings. All right, so now we have 4 markings, and we can lay that down on our cutting mat. All right. The next thing we're going to need to do is figure out where we're going to place our purse feet. So this is where some measurements come in. So we're going to measure for the placement of our purse feet. So we're going to draw a couple of lines. And I'm going to try to make this as easy as possible for you. So the purse feet actually come in from the corner. They come in 1.5 inches this way and 1 inch up. But to make it easy for you, I'm just going to draw a line that goes straight across, straight down, straight down. So then that way you can actually see where the markings are. So I'm going to go across 1.5 inches this way, and I'm going to draw a line because we're going to have purse feet at the top and the bottom. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, right? I'm going to draw a line 1.5 inches in, top and bottom. So just draw a straight line going down. Then we need to draw a line over, we need to draw a line that's 1 inch up. So I'm going to draw a line that goes straight across 1 inch. Sorry, I have my little iron over here on the right that I keep bumping into. So I'm going to draw a line that's 1 inch. You can draw it across. I'm going to draw it straight across just because you can see it clearer on the video. And I'm going to draw another line over here, which shall be, in this case, 1 inch down. Top and bottom. All right, because we need we need it in the corners. All right. Oops. The angle of my pen wasn't working. My pen angle when I was drawing across the top wasn't working too well. Let's try it again. Maybe it's the pen itself. So I want to make sure. See this one, you'll definitely see. Okay. So where this meets at the corners over here, over here, over here, and over here are going to be where our purse feet are going to go, right? So those are 4 corners. We have one more purse foot that we need to put in the middle, and that's going to be centered on our center line. So we're going to draw a vertical line top to bottom and horizontal top to bottom. And this one you don't have to draw the full length. You could have just drawn it in the middle, but I just want to show you. And then the last purse foot will go right here in the middle. All right, so we have a total of 5 purse feet that we need to add. So you have a number of ways that you can do this. You can take an awl. So I actually have a little awl here. I can stick my awl right in that hole. If you have a hole punch of some sort, you can do that as well. But I'm just going to stick the awl right in there and make the hole. If you have a sharp, pointy scissor, and I don't know where I put my sharp, pointy scissor, but you can put the sharp, pointy scissor, or you can use your seam ripper and stick it in there. So I'm going to use my awl, and I'm just going to make the hole go through. It's pretty chubby, but it goes through. I don't know if you can see, it goes through to the front. If you have a punch, a punch to punch the holes in here, like a leather punch, you can do that as well. But either an awl or a pointy pair of scissors work equally as well. And I'll show you how it looks when I'm done. Okay, so I've punched all the holes. You can see there's one here, there's one here, there's one in the middle, and then there's one on either corner. And I use those marks. I'm going to use my little screwdriver that came in my kit. So I can take my screwdriver And where I put the hole, I can stick that in there, and I can, you know, move it around a little bit to widen the hole there. Stick it here and put it in there and widen the hole. So then the next thing we need to do is get one of our screws and one of our purse feet. And this is going to be a little challenging, but stick with it. You're going to get it. So we're going to take our screw and we're going to put it in one of the holes. So let's do the center one first. So let's make sure that hole is big enough. And we're going to take the screw and we're going to place it over where the hole is. So it's right there. If I turn this to the front, my hole, and it's hard to see on the camera, but my hole is right here. If I take my screwdriver, I can press down around that and push it in such a way that the screw actually comes out the front. So it's a shallow screw, but it will come out the front. If you're finding that you're having a difficult time at doing this, there's my screw, you can take your scissor. So I can take my sharp scissor, fold it in half, and make a snip. It'll be very small snip, but make a snip. I don't know if you heard that. But you just want to make that big enough that that screw will come through. So I'm going to give it another try. Put the screw here. I made a snip, so it should be a little bigger hole. See? And it came through. I don't know if you can see it. Alright? So once you make that snip, and it should be a very small snip, don't make it a huge snip. You're going to take your purse foot, and I stuck it on there. It's got that hole right there. Let's see if I show you right here. This hole. That's where the screw needs to go into. You're going to place that over. And you're going to actually turn it so it'll screw down. To finish it off, you'll need to flip it back over, take your screwdriver, hold on to your purse foot. I'm holding on to it so it doesn't rotate. And I'm going to use my screwdriver and I'm going to screw it in until it stops. And then if you want, you can hold really tight, which is what I'm doing on the other side, and it stops. So then I have my one purse foot in. We can come back and we can repeat the same for these. So I'm going to do a little snip again. I'm just going to fold it ever so slightly. I'm going to do a little tiny snip. So just with the point of my scissor, I'm going to snip. Just enough to make a hole. Okay, and I think you heard that, right? When I stick my screwdriver in, I can see that I have it in there. I'm going to grab one of my purse feet again. Remember to insert it from the wrong side, your purse foot. Push down on it. You can use your little screwdriver to help you. So I'm pushing down with the screwdriver to expose that actual screw or the threads of the screw that's there. And it'll come up. It's hard to see because I actually used blue ink on this one, but it is right there. My screw. You're going to grab one of your purse feet. You're going to put it on. You're going to turn it to start it. Hold the screw in the back. Flip it over. Make sure to hold your purse foot as tight as you can on the other side. And rotate. And I actually pinch it like this to hold it once I get it started. And I just start screwing until it stops. So we have 1, 2, and I'm going to go in and do the other 3. Just like that. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 purse feet. They've been attached. And I will be adding a piece of duct tape to each one of these as well, just to help the screw stay in there. They're in there tight enough, so they should not fall out. There is a something called Loctite, I believe it's called, or Screw-Tite, I forget what the name of it is, that you can add in there as well to help lock the screws in. This does not have to be neat, but I'm just adding a piece of duct tape. Once again, you can add duct tape. I've seen people add washi tape or masking tape. This is a strong duct tape, and so I usually don't have any problems with this coming off. So, there you go. Your purse feet are all done. There are protective pieces of plastic. I would recommend that you leave them on until after you've completed your bag. So the next part is going to be finishing the exterior of the bag. So we will need the piece that we used for the bottom where we added the purse feet. We will need one piece of which is the back, and the back is you know what it is because it does not have that handcrafted tag on it. So we will need the back, we will need the front, the back, and the bottom to construct the exterior of the bag. So it is 3 pieces, and then our final step will be to add the handles. So we have our front, back, and bottom. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to mark the center of our back. We did that for the front and the bottom already because we marked them to put the purse feet in and the label or the tag. What we'll need to do is do the same for the back. So we're going to fold this in half, short sides together, and we will mark the center. I mentioned before I actually snip about 1/8 of an inch. You can use a pen on the wrong side, a marking tool. Take your marking tool on the wrong side and mark the center. All right, so now I have that. You can see that I snipped it at right there. So it's about 1/8. My seam allowance will be 1/4, so it'll be, you won't see it. The first thing we're going to do is we will take that center mark and we're going to attach our straps. So let's attach our straps first. And then what we will do after we attach our straps is we will sew the bag together. So we're going to get both of our straps, and these were the straps, and we're going to make a mark on either side of that center mark at the top to add our straps. We want to make sure that the strap hangs over about 1/4 of an inch. So we want to make sure the strap that we attach hangs over about 1/4 of an inch. So if I put that right there and I look and I count across, I can see my 1/4 of an inch mark is right there. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and about 1/4 of an inch up. And that's where we want our straps to be. The strap should be face down. I'm sorry, yes, face down or right sides together. So they should be the right side of the strap exterior should face the exterior of this. Being careful not to twist your strap, we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Now that 1/4 inch that you're hanging it into the bag, that will be inside the bag, will help as you tug it so it's not at the seam line, and it'll help it not to get pulled out. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go back to our sewing machine and we're going to stitch that at a 1/8 of an inch using a 3.0 seam allowance, stitch length. We're permanently going to stitch that in at 1/8 because that'll be our first stitch, and then when we sew around the bag, that'll be the second stitch. So we're putting 2 permanent stitches. We're going to do this for the back, and we're going to take our front and we're going to do the same thing. So once again, we're going to measure across 3, go up about 1/4 of an inch, and attach our strap. So about 1/4 of an inch of that strap is hanging over. And we'll take both of these front and back once again to the sewing machine. We're going to stitch at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance with a stitch length of a 3. So now we've attached the straps. You can see that if I flip it over, that's going to be where we're going to stitch, and they're attached. You should just double check by flipping them up to make sure that they're aligned. So make sure that you match up your centers and that they're aligned. There's nothing worse than getting your bag together and realizing your straps are crooked. Okay, so we want to match them and make sure that they're aligned with the edge. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take our front. We have a center mark on the front, and we're going to take our bottom and we're going to line up that center mark with the bottom center mark of our bottom, and we're going to clip in place. So I always start at the center and I clip out. So I'm using 3 clips. You can use as many as you need to make it work. When you're done, you should have approximately 2 inches on either side, and this is centered, so approximately 2 inches. We're going to stitch the bottom of this using 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. So we're going to stitch straight across the bottom. You can start and you can stop 1/4 of an inch in if you'd like, because we're going to make a box corner, but you can stitch straight across if you want. So if you want to, you can measure in 1/4 of an inch from this edge, put a mark, and 1/4 of an inch from this end and put a mark. So if you want, you can do that, or you can stitch straight across. It's not going to matter. The 1/4 of an inch actually just helps you know where the peak is, and you may find that helpful. Okay. But you can stitch straight across because we're going to make it work anyway. So I'm going to go and I'm going to stitch across this with a stitch length of 3 at 1/4 of an inch. So I've attached the bottom. You can see I've attached the bottom and it's sewn in. So we've attached it to the front. So the next step is to attach this piece to the back. So let's pull out our back piece. Make sure that the strap is at the top. So we're matching the tops together. We're going to line up that center mark with the center mark on the back, like so. We're going to clip in place. Like I said, I do 3 clips normally. You can do more, whatever you need. And we're going to clip it just like that. You should have approximately, for this one as well, about 2 inches on either side, so you know that it's centered. If you need to draw your 1/4 mark, you can over here, and the 1/4 mark will just tell you where to stop and start. But you can go to the end. On this one, I went straight to the end. I didn't stop, but if you want to, you can on here. So I'm going to stitch across this again, 1/4 of an inch seam allowance with a stitch length of 3. So now I have the bottom attached to both the front and the back, and it should look like this. purse feet, you have your metal tag or label centered. Your straps are attached. The final step to complete the exterior of the bag is going to be to sew up the sides. Now, the way that we're going to sew up the sides is we're going to match the top and the bottom of the side. So we're going to take one side and we're going to start there, and we're going to match the top and the bottom. And you may have to bend this piece a little bit just to get this to fit in. So I match the corners, and then the center should align. So we're going to do this one at a time. All right. When you stitch this you'll have to peek this out a little bit, so move it up, and you're going to stitch this straight line down at 1/4 inch seam allowance using a stitch length of 3. So I've sewn my side with the 1/4 inch seam allowance from top to bottom, back stitch, start and stop. Now what we need to do is match the bottom. So if you remember earlier, we marked the center line here. So we're going to match this seam with that center line. If you want, you can try to open it. It's a very small seam. You can open it. You do not have to. You can just push the seam either one way or the other and clip in place. So either move to the left or the right and clip in place. The corners you're going to need to pull out. If you did that 1/4 inch start and stop, it's easier, but if you didn't, that's okay. Just pull it out, flatten it out. You'll have to play with it a little bit, and flatten it out and put a clip. And you're going to do the same on the other corner. So just stick your finger in there, bend this back, pull it out, and put a clip. Okay? So you can sew from the top here if you want to sew this way. But you see it's a straight line. Or you can sew from the bottom if it's easier for you. You just have to move this bag out of the way and stitch this way. So it's up to you. Just make sure that center is aligned so you don't have a wonky bag. And you're going to stitch from this all the way across using a stitch length of 3 and 1/4 inch seam allowance. So now I've sewn that corner. If you take a look on the inside of the bag, turn it around for you. Just check to make sure that you've caught the entire corner. So every now and then you can stitch it and you can miss the corner. But what I like to do is turn it out and make sure that you catch that corner on all the corners. We're going to repeat the same steps for the opposite side of the bag. So we're now going to match the opposite side, which is open. Once again, I match the side seam to side seam. Remember, bow this down a little bit so that you can actually get in there. It is flexible. It's rigid, but it's flexible. It's pliable. You're now going to match the center, and sometimes I give it a little tug just to make sure. And we're going to stitch this side seam using 1/4 inch seam allowance and a stitch length of 3. So we've done that second side. The next thing we want to do is we want to match the bottoms again. So once again, it's easier sometimes if you open up the bag. You're going to match this center mark with the seam. You can try opening it, but like I said, it's very small, so just push it to one side or the other. Put a clip. Stick your finger in and pull out your corners over here so that they lie as flat as possible. Put another clip. And on this side, once again, pull it out as flat as possible and put a clip. We're going to sew across this at 1/4 inch seam allowance with a stitch length of 3. So we've sewn this, we've sewn this, and we've sewn up our sides. So the next thing to do is to turn our bag right side out. So the easiest way to do it is grab a corner, push that corner in, grab it from the inside of your bag, and just roll your bag so it's right side out. So I'm just rolling it so it's right side out. You see how pliable that anti-soft and stable is. You're going to then go to your corners and just gently poke them. Don't push too hard. You don't want to put your finger through them. But just poke them out at the bottom. What I do is I pinch the bag all the way around. So I pinch it just to help it get a little bit of shape at the bottom. And I'm going to poke them all out. Check to make sure that you caught all the stitches at the bottom and that you don't have any holes when you stitched. You can always then just turn it right side out and redo it. Take a deeper stitch if you have to. But when you're done, your bag should pretty much just stand on its own. Like I said, I just press this seam with my fingers. I don't do anything fancy. Your bottom should look like this with your purse feet on it. This is the front. Your straps are attached. And you should be ready now to work on the internal lining. So we've now completed the exterior of the bag.